let's talk about every American's favorite subject, debt. Do you have any debt? Maybe that's a car loan, credit card payment, or a student loan. Likely answer to that question is yes. You might even have given in and signed up for a buy now, pay later loan that you've seen online from companies such as Affirm and Klarna. No judgment, but there's a chance you've indulged in a payday loan here or there. And for the best of us, if you don't have any of that frowned upon debt, maybe you're just sitting on a mortgage and you feel pretty good about that. Now, some of these loans clearly sound worse than others. Like having a credit card payment generally feels like a bad thing, and having a mortgage, well, it feels like a good thing. Payday loans are hated by basically everyone, but you can get away with a car payment here or there. But despite what you've heard and the different reputations that all of these types of debts have, the truth is, all of them, and I mean absolutely all of them, can be considered bad debt. And yes, that can even include your mortgage. So a mortgage, as we all expect, is more likely to be a good debt. And likely you've had conversations with numerous friends and family members about the benefits of buying a house. A home is the most common way to build wealth. Homes appreciate over time, and on they go. But buyer beware, because you can easily be walking into a situation that will put a strain on your finances. So if the type of debt doesn't tell us much, how can we better understand if our debt is good or bad? Well, let's start by defining bad debt and what it's made of. Generally speaking, bad debt can be defined as any debt that's considered irresponsible. This can mean that the debt either provides you no return, is rapidly depreciating, or on a broader level, it simply has a negative impact on your future or overall financial well-being. Based on this definition, you can see that bad debt can actually be pretty broad, and what's considered good debt to one person may actually be bad debt to another. So what do we do with this newly extended view on debt? We can now start to think more intelligently about it. When considering any type of new debt, we shouldn't look at it from the surface to determine if it's good or bad, but actually look at how that debt works and fits into our lives. Luckily for us, there are rules that can determine whether your debt payments are in the ballpark or if they're simply bad debt. Let's look at some of the most popular forms of debt. For most of these options, you'll see that there are rules that you can follow so that they remain good debt. But we'll also talk through the pitfalls and show that they can easily become bad debt if you're not careful. The lowest hanging fruits on the debt ladder are credit card debt, payday loans, buy now, pay later loans, or any form of the short-term consumer debt. When it comes to this type of debt, you can mark all of it as bad, generally. The reason for this is simple. Debts like these have very high interest rates. On a credit card, the average interest rate is around 24%, and the average American has $7,279 in credit card debt. This means that you are paying $1,800 a year just in interest on that debt alone. When it comes to payday loans, the interest on those is usually 400% or more. A crazy number, but luckily these loans are reserved for smaller debts that can still make a huge impact on your life when you don't pay them off quickly. Having a high interest rate means that there's no way to get your money back by taking the loan. This means that there's no safe or time-tested investment that would be better for your money. On top of that, you are simply losing a whole lot of money to interest. The S&P 500 index, for example, returns about 8 to 12% a year. Say you have $7,279 in the bank and you decide you want to put that in the S&P 500 and generate that interest. To cover your expenses, you decide to put $7,279 on a credit card. On that money you invested, you would see a return of $873 for the year on average. This sounds pretty great. It's $873 you didn't have earlier. But remember, that credit card will charge you $1,800 in interest that year. So after paying the interest on the card, that would mean that you'd still lose $943 in the first year of paying off that debt. You'd need to over double the rate of return on the S&P 500 to make up that loss. On top of that, the $1,819 that you paid in interest, well, it could have been $65,392 over 30 years in an investment account that returned the same 12%. Americans are doing this, throwing away a potential $65,000 to credit card payments every single year. But okay, you may ask, don't those credit cards have points and perks that offset the costs? Yes, and they can be great, but they are not worth it if you hold a credit card balance. The best credit cards can offer 2% cash back with higher rates in some categories. They also offer perks that usually provide a one-time bonus of up to $1,000 in value at signing. Sometimes you can get more out of that. But still, 2% does not make up for your paying 24% interest, and $1,000 doesn't make up for holding a balance over the long term. And let's not forget that there's usually a fee associated with the top cards of $97 to upward of $600 a year. So know yourself. If you're the type to hold any credit card debt, then you won't benefit from these perks. You are not a credit card person. Now, I will acknowledge that with credit cards and buy now, pay later loans, there are often instances where you can get 0% interest for a limited time. You can also unlock these rates by paying off the debt in a timely manner. Using our interest rate rule above, taking on these loans is okay, but only if you're going to use the money to invest or save. That way you are generating a return on your money while slowly paying off the loan before it accrues interest. In this form, it can be like free money. But be very careful and don't venture here if you miss payments or have a history of holding debt. Missed and late payments could have hard consequences, so only use it if you have a history of paying all of your interest on time. One missed payment could negate all of the benefits you received, and once again, you're not a credit card person. Now on to car loans. Car loans by definition are bad debt. And I'll be upfront and say there's barely any way around that. Cars are a depreciating asset and they depreciate fast. Most cars lose 20% of their value in the first year. You don't want to take out a loan on anything that will go down in value. But I get it. No one wants to drive around in something that's carrying their bumper on the ground or something that's simply unsafe. While paying cash is always best, not all of us can do that when we need to get around safely and frequently. Of course, if we actually had infrastructure that didn't rely on you needing a car to get around, then this might not be a forced choice. But either way, we have some rules to make sure you don't end up ruining your financial future over a Toyota Corolla or Hellcat if you're into those. First, when it comes to car loans, we want to pay off these debts fast. Again, it's a depreciating asset, so let's not hold onto that debt for long. Second, your car loan should be manageable enough that you can meet all other financial obligations without taking on more bad debt. If you find you can't invest and save or pay for your lifestyle without a credit card, you may want to look at your debt burden. Luckily, we have a rule by our friends, the Money Guy, called the 23-8 rule. I went into this rule into detail in the previous video in this series, but to follow this rule, simply put 20% down on your car loan, take no more than a 3-year loan, and make sure your monthly payments are no more than 8% of your gross income. We like this rule because it's responsible, but also very understanding. By following this rule, you can get a good amount of car for where you're at, but still secure your financial future. Although, we do see this rule as an absolute limit on how much car you should purchase. You should not go past this rule, but always aim to do better than the rule as well. Here's what I mean. Paying cash is generally the best way to buy a car, but if you can't get there, are you able to put down 25% or maybe 40%? Anything to get a little more cash into the vehicle. Opting for a cheaper car, and especially a used car, will likely be an exponentially better option for you. Granted, you don't buy something that's falling apart or will put you in danger. There still are technical ways to make a better return on your investment with a very low interest rate, but we do not advise this for most people as you're likely to get more of a car than you need when you take out a loan anyway. Cash is king. The next category we'll cover is student loans. Student loans represent the second largest consumer debt category in America. We covered this topic in detail in the first video in this series, and there's a good reason why it's the second largest consumer debt category. Getting a good education can be life-changing. Doing so can get you in careers and in rooms that you would not have access to if you didn't go. If you do college right, then you can get a major financial advantage in life that many just don't. But don't relax, because just like cars and credit cards, student loans can easily become bad debt. And in fact, most of us don't know when it does. No one goes to school thinking their investment for the future could be bad debt. But for way too many students, this easily becomes the case if it isn't already. First, A lot of students simply don't graduate school, up to 33% actually. This is an easy way to turn that $20,000 per year for your education upside down. If you aren't committed to the process or don't know what you want to do in school yet, then just wait or find better opportunities that can support you. School will always be there and you'll thank yourself later in life. Next, many students fail to use their degree to get better paying jobs. A college degree can put you ahead of those who don't have one. In the job market, the average college graduate receives $58,862 annually after graduation. Get the right internships and form the right connections, and that can further ensure you reach this goal. Unfortunately, there are many degree paths that won't lead you to financial wellness. Instead, you might be taking on debt and leaving yourself behind the 8 ball. For example, the arts. I'm not against pursuing the arts. I personally did it myself. But think critically, as these careers are often the culprit. Can you take lessons from a local artist or go to acting school in LA? For me, I did side gigs and pursued ways that allowed me to sell my music. Get creative and turn your dreams into a financial powerhouse. Lastly, consider your interest rate. Unlike credit cards, if you're stuck with a 5% or higher loan, it's not automatically bad debt, but aim to keep this number as low as possible. You can do this by sticking to federal loans, and if you can get them, take subsidized loans that will save you the most amount over time if you qualify. Then of course there's private student loans, and the vast majority of their time, especially if they're with Sally Mae, they're bad debt. Now that we know what makes our student loans bad, let's see where we stand with our mortgage. Most mortgages are considered good, but can turn into bad debt quickly if we don't follow some of these simple rules. The first one is clear, but not always easy. Don't let your mortgage exceed 25% of your gross income, and when you're getting a mortgage, opt for a 15 or 30-year fixed rate. Letting your home payment get too high is an easy way to become house poor and turn your home into a bad debt nightmare. A home that you live in is a form of a liquid wealth. Sure, it can be worth a lot of money, but there isn't much you can do with that money in the short term. You can't just go and spend it quickly and access it when a rainy day comes. And there's more to life than just a house. Holiday presents, vacations, cool gadgets are an example of things we want to enjoy in life. But if you have all of your money tied up into a house, then that's less you can spend on some of these fun things. Then there's adjustable rate mortgages, and it's one of the quickest ways to go from good debt to bad debt. While adjustable rates tend to be more competitive now, they have the ability to change and hurt your future. With a few interest rate hikes, you could see your interest rates skyrocket in a matter of years. This fact has been especially painful since the pandemic. During the pandemic years, many saw interest rates as low as 2%. Taking a fixed rate loan ensured that the buyers of those homes were able to keep those rates. But if those whose loans are variable, they likely saw their interest rates skyrocket by an unprecedented amount thanks to a swift and large increase of interest rates. So that covers the main debts for this video. Take what you learned today and apply it critically for your life. There are so many other types of debt out there, but the same principles can be applied to those as well. Whether you run a business and are considering a business loan or need a HELOC to cover some of your home renovations. As for some final tips, remember that if it's a depreciating asset, it's likely bad debt, so get rid of it and minimize it. Never pay interest rates over 12% and avoid interest rates over 5%. And if you do, only do so on investments like your education or mortgage. And also remember, if your payments are getting out of hand or reducing your quality of life, that may be a sign that you have some bad debt and need to cut it back. Leave topics you want us to cover in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the resources linked in the description below.